Washoe County Library System welcomes you to our monthly series from the Nevada Historical Society presents High Noon with Neil Cobb. This afternoon's topic is about Eilley Orrum, Riches to Rags at Bowers Mansion, presented by Sandie La Nae. My name is Jennifer, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
Thank you, Jennifer and John and the Washoe County Libraries. We so appreciate them helping us put on these great programs and providing them live and being able to record them so people can watch them at any time. So glad you guys have joined us today for August High Noon series, and I'm so glad to see a friend of mine that is our speaker today. It's been a while since I've seen her, but I'm always following her on Facebook. She's a very busy woman all the time. So like I said, we so appreciate you being here today with us. And let me introduce our host, our honorary curator, Neil Cobb. He has been a longtime supporter here with the Nevada Historical Society, and he's always so helpful in trying to share Nevada history, Reno history, and this program is been because of him and his dedication, and I really appreciate him helping us out. So without further ado, let me introduce Neil. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Sherry, and thanks for the intro. I'll see if I can live up to it. Sandie La Nae is our speaker for today, and among Sandie La Nae's many talents in the medical physical world, I knew I was going to screw that up. It's metaphysical world. Add to her resume the title of author to date. She has written 30 books, many with co-author and special works historian Arlene Lavari. La Nae's volumes include several genres of history, paranormal, memories, about minerals, and Sandie is a published poet. Along with that, she has a very successful and popular radio program. So at this time, please welcome Sandie La Nae.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this lecture, which is titled The Life of Eilley Orrum Bowers. I am Sandie La Nae, and I am a Nevada author. This is Arlene Lavari. She is a docent and a special works historian at the Sparks Heritage Museum. She's worked for many decades at the Nevada Historical Society in Reno. Now, Arlene and I have written and are writing many books that bring forth the history of a particular building or town or person that has not been seen or read about since the mid to late 1800s. We also love to write our Weird series, in which these volumes are chock full of interesting trivia you just can't live without. To date, including my solo books, Arlene and I have 32 volumes. Each of our books are filled with facts, anecdotes, thrills and chills, and enlightening pieces of information, such as our volume titled Eilley, Riches to Rags at Bowers Mansion, which describes Eilley, her life, and the beautiful mansion she called and still does call home. What a great way for us to share Eilley's fascinating history by writing this book. For this lecture, I will present key points of the life of Eilley Orrum Hunter Cowan Bowers. Eilley hailed from an old family of Highland Scottish spiritualists claiming to have the gift of second sight. This gift was passed on to her, which included being clairvoyant and prophetic. She was born Alison Orrum in Dunfermline, Fife, Forfar, Angus, Scotland, on September 6, 1826. Now, the ordinance records of the Mormon Church have that she was born Alison Strong to parents John and Jeanette Strong. The last name of Orrum is open to debate as to how it came into being, why it was used, and how it was actually spelled. Our book goes into further explanations about this Celtic name. At the age of 15, Eilley met missionary elder Stephen Hunter, and the two were married. Immigrating to America, first settling in Illinois for a short time, Eilley and hubby started the Western Trek to the new colony for Mormons created by Brigham Young in Great Salt Lake, Utah territory. Well, polygamy, as she found out, was not Eilley's cup of tea, so she and Stephen divorced. Eilley soon met another Mormon man, Alexander Cowan, and the two were married in August of 1853. Eilley was 27 years old. In 1854, the Cowans traveled west to the community of Mormon Station, now known as Genoa. Then in May of 1856, the couple moved into the Washoe Valley settlement named Franktown. Cowan, too, was faithful to the Mormon church and the polygamy ways. So when all fellowship was called back to Utah in July of 1857, due to a federal invasion by the U.S. government, Eilley told Alexander she was staying in Franktown. Then she quickly began divorce proceedings. When ore was discovered near Gold Hill in 1857, Eilley relocated there, opening a boarding house. In 1859, she purchased a 10-foot mining claim that flanked the 10-foot mining claim of Lemuel Sanford Bowers, who was a very successful prospector. Sandie, as he was known, was 26 years old. Eilley was 34, and the two fell in love and were married. The couple organized the Bowers Mining Company, sunk a shaft, built hoisting works, and constructed a 2-story frame house, which they painted dark red. In 1862, a special year for Eilley and Sandie, they decided to build a home in the beautiful Sierra Foothill, Franktown area. Their mansion would eclipse anything that had been previously erected in the territory. While their house was being constructed, the Bowers planned a trip to Europe in order to purchase roomfuls of elegant furnishings for the mansion. They boarded the Cunard Line RMS Persia on Monday, June 30th, 1862. Now, there is a great controversy that surrounds daughter Margaret Persia Bowers. Was she born to the Bowers on the RMS Persia? And if so, why did Eilley travel being 9 months pregnant? Another theory is the Bowers took over the child from the also traveling biological mother who passed away right after giving birth to the girl. One speculation is the child was born to another at the hotel where the Bowers stayed before boarding the ship and was decidedly given to the Bowers. Historians have pondered over Persia through the centuries. Our book goes into further explanation about Persia as well. In August of 1863, their magnificent home was ready for occupancy and was stuffed full of European furnishings, fixtures, and fittings. Opulence and luxury was displayed in every room. Eilley's lifelong dream was fulfilled. She had a beautiful home and a loving family. But her dream didn't last long. In the year 1865, the end of the Civil War and the assassination of President Lincoln came about. 2 came the beginning of the decline in the financial exchange of area mining. The market value had fallen, viable ore bodies were being exhausted, and new discoveries of gold and silver failed to materialize. Taxes on their Washoe property skyrocketed, and a zephyr wind blew over 2 huge pine trees onto the house, which caused great damage. Their mill had to be shut down in 1868 due to severe flooding. With fortunes lost, Sandie decided to sell the Bowers mine, and a disparaging episode soon followed. Sandie had been ill for quite some time, and on Tuesday, April 21st, 1868, the banner of the Gold Hill Daily News morning paper proclaimed in the header, "Death of a good citizen." The lengthy newspaper article stated his death was due to inflammation of the lungs. Comstock communities were greatly saddened. Eilley was devastated by losing her beloved husband. Eilley knew, however, with Sandie gone and the mine no longer a source of income, the mansion was her only asset. She made improvements in hopes of opening her home as a resort. Grand balls, dances, and parties with fine meals and entertainment were advertised. Healing mineral baths were promoted, as well as boasting an online doctor. The grounds were furnished with outside games like croquet, and weekly public picnics were all on the agenda to bring in money to maintain and to keep her beloved mansion. Oh, life was good once again. But soon, fate reared its heart-wrenching head once again. Persia, now 12 years old, had been living in Reno, attending a boarding school. She visited home each weekend and on holidays. Returning to Reno on Friday, July 10th, 1874, Persia claimed she didn't feel well. Sunday, July 12th, Eilley was summoned to her bedside as Persia was very ill. On Tuesday, July 14th, Persia died to a burst appendix. Eilley was once again devastated. Oh, this time losing her beloved daughter. Trying to move forward in life once again, the renovations for 18 more resort and now boarding house guest rooms actually set Eilley back $8,000. Today's cost would be $204,407.44. But by 1875, Eilley's debts had increased considerably. She was then forced to leave the mansion and grounds to William M. Carey, who became the manager. Eilley was embarrassed and humiliated. By 1876, Eilley could no longer hold off creditors. In May of that year, the District Court of Washoe County auctioned off her properties. 8 years after Sandie's death, Eilley lost everything to Myron C. Lake that day in a sale that garnered only $10,000. This third time, Eilley was devastated by losing her beloved home. Eilley knew she needed to forge ahead in life, and so she employed her gift of second sight to earn money. Using a clear quartz sphere that she called a peepstone, great and grand visions of the future were perceived. This ability, using her peepstone, is known as scrying, and Eilley was the quintessence of being a scryer. Her visions and predictions were on the 100% side of accuracy, such as noted with the following predictions. When early miners gave up and left the Gold Hill area, Peter O'Reilly and Pat McLaughlin consulted Eilley, who told them to work on the spot the other miners had deserted. The men did, and cut into a massive decomposed black sulphuret of silver filled with glittering spangles of free gold. And the great Comstock lode was found. Many believe that Eilley, through her precise prediction, should have been given the credit of the discovery of the Comstock lode. I agree. Eilley had seen an astounding vision in regards to the mines of the Comstock, seeing that an immense deposit of ore would be at the north end of the vein, beginning at the Ophir mine. Eilley's prediction was correct. Soon the entire world heard about the greatest bonanza of all times, discovered at the north end of Virginia City. The area was developed by James Fair, James Flood, John Mackey, and William O'Brien, who came to be known as the, you're right, Bonanza Kings. Eilley had a dark vision that a disastrous fire with a dreadful loss of life would occur somewhere in the mines of Gold Hill. On the early morning of Wednesday, April 7th, 1869, that prediction came true. A fire started blazing in the Yellow Jacket and Crown Point mines. It is theorized that the fire originated on the 800-foot level of the Yellow Jacket mine, and it is believed the fire started when a lit candle tumbled into a box. The flames, then spreading, burned the timbers to such an extent that they caved in, filling the shaft with debris. Trapped gases within the shaft caused explosions, further spreading the fire. There were many attempts at rescuing the miners, and several lives were saved. But heat, smoke, gases, and flames kept away most of those helping. By late Friday morning, 2 full days after its discovery, the fire was still raging. Further recoveries being impossible, the decision was made to seal up the shafts of the Gold Hill mines involved. 33 men lost their lives that day. Speaking of fires, Eilley had foreseen a disastrous one burning Virginia City. On Tuesday, October 26, 1875, at 5:30 in the morning, a boarding house keeper named Kate Shea knocked over a lamp, starting the blaze. Before the fire brigade could arrive, several wooden buildings adjoining the lodging house were burning. Heavy winds were blowing and veering about in all directions as the fire increased in magnitude, rushing at breakneck speed and making great leaps from building to building on its course. When the fire was at its height, the city was a sea of flames from which immense columns of pitch black smoke rose hundreds of feet into the air. Heard was the roar of the fire, the crash of falling roofs and walls, and tremendous explosions as structures were blown up in various parts of the town. Some of the detonations were so weighty that they rattled dishes in the town of Dayton, which is 5 miles distant. Only 2 people were killed in this fire, but numerous others were injured. Many of Eilley's predictions were quite helpful, however, in finding important missing items. A Virginia City woman lost a very valuable ring. It had been sent by express from San Francisco, and while still in the package, it was stolen right out of the lady's pocketbook as she walked home. Eilley checked her peepstone and stated, "The thief will return it never being seen doing so. Sorry, I don't have a Scottish brogue. A few days later, someone rang the bell at the woman's house. Upon opening the door, no one was there, but the ring and the case it had been shipped in was on her doorstep. A shop owner advertised in a local newspaper that an important envelope holding valuable insurance papers and a fair amount of money was missing. Eilley Bowers was consulted and exposed that the envelope had been stolen by a woman. Upon hearing the description of the lady, excuse me, the shop owner remembered that person entering into the store on the day the items went missing. Following Eilley's directions, the shop owner found the lady who had stolen the envelope. She apologized, returned all, and promised to pay back the money that had been spent. A man by the name of Mr. Frey traveled to Placerville from Genoa in search of better business dealings. He was gone for some time and never sent any money home to his wife and children. Mrs. Frey confided her anxiety to Eilley, who then gazed at her peepstone and saw a vision of what appeared to be a long table. It resembles a 24-foot bar, and Mr. Frey is at the end with the glass in his hand, surrounded by convivial company, Eilley told the woman. As Mrs. Frey thanked Eilley, she also stated, "I will be taking appropriate actions." For several years, to continue generating funds, Eilley began a circuit of offering intuitive readings, which at the time were called sittings. She visited Stockton, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and many small towns in Northern California. As well, she trekked to Mexico on occasion, and of course, journeyed around the northern region of Nevada. Eilley had achieved the reputation she deserved. Her name was on everyone's lips, thereupon gaining several titles, including First Class Seeress, Our Washoe Seeress, Most Reliable Medium, Astrological Sharp, and the First Class Clairvoyant. Oh, life was good once again. But time marches on. In the mid-1880s, Eilley saw her fortune-telling business decreasing considerably. 2, her hearing, eyesight, and general health grew steadily worse. Now destitute, she sought help. The Masonic Lodge of Reno came to Eilley's rescue. A nurse was provided, and on Monday, March 11, 1901, Eilley entered the King's Daughter's home in Oakland, California, the city that she was living in at the time. Her room is the third window from the right, in the middle there. That was her room. 2 years later, just 3 days after her 77th birthday, in 1903, Eilley passed away. Her body was taken care of by the San Francisco-Colma Cemetery. Cemetery employee and Good Samaritan George Gilligley claimed Eilley's cremated remains and offered to convey Eilley's ashes from the cemetery to the mansion in Franktown, as it was her wish to lie beside Sandie and Persia. Eilley's funeral took place on Sunday, November 15, 1903, at Bowers Mansion, under the auspices of Ada Chapter of the Order of Eastern Star. She was then laid to rest next to her husband and daughter. It was a crazy, windy, and rainy day during her funeral, and some say it was symbolic of Eilley's long hardworking life. Perhaps those strong winds and pouring rain was Eilley's way of saying goodbye. All Bowers graves lay on the slope of a hill directly behind the mansion in a serene forested clearing. There is much more history written among the pages of our book that weren't talked about in this lecture, of course. Eilley was a unique and interesting person who experienced so much in her life. She was a pioneer of Nevada, of the Comstock, and was a hardy, resourceful, and highly intuitive lady. It was a true honor for us to write all about her and the mansion, along with its restoration. Her history, the mansion's history, up to present-day accounts are all presented among the pages of the book for your reading pleasure. And if we can boast, the book is a good read and makes a nice gift. To this volume, as well as all our books, can be purchased through my website. Eilley is also written in our book, Silver Terrace Spiritualists, which is a book about psychics and mediums on the Comstock. Just one last comment before I end the lecture. If you haven't already, when you take the tour or wander through Bowers Mansion, be sure to have your cameras or your phones or recording devices at the ready. You might capture Eilley's spectral image or record her voice. She loved her Washoe Valley so very much. She is most definitely still there. Thank you all so much for joining in this lecture about the phenomenal Eilley Orrum Bowers. And a special thank you to Washoe County Library System, Nevada Historical Society, Jennifer, Neil, John, Carol, and Sherry for this wonderful opportunity. It has been a true honor.
Sandie, that was great.
Thank you.
Get my video back on there. No, it was wonderful.
I love Eilley, and I was just really glad that a suggestion was made to us to write a book about her.
Oh, absolutely. And just the hardships she went through is an interesting story too, but how strong she was even after all that.
Sure.
So I have some questions for you from the audience. How old were Eilley's first two husbands? Do you know ages of them?
What I have read in history, I think her first husband was quite a few years older. Okay. And I think her second one, Cowan, I think he was basically around her age. But just like I said, reading about her first husband, I think there was probably a good 20, 25 years.
Okay. As I say, yeah, I was curious about the picture, if those are a little bit later pictures or if that was more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You already mentioned, so you have 32 books that you guys have done. And what's the latest one we were talking about that you are finishing up right now or just finished up?
We just sent that to the editors, and it's called The Donovan Mill. And the Comstock Foundation asked us to write that. And so what an honor that was. And I have to say, it was quite a challenge because I know nothing about mining, or I did know nothing about mining. Now I know everything about mining, and I think I could buy my own plant, my own cyanide plant.
Well, and it's so interesting, but yeah, it can get very technical when you're dealing with. Oh, okay. So I have another question. What year did they move into the mansion? Because you said they started having construction in, what was it, 1862, but when did they move in?
1864. Yeah.
Okay. And how old was she a baby when she when they got her as a daughter, or was she a little bit older? I guess I don't know that story.
Oh, Persia?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was an infant.
Oh, okay.
And as mentioned in the lecture, um, she has been pondered and thought about and debated and tried to discover where in the world Persia came from. But those are the three theories: that Eilley was pregnant, the biological mother passed away, or they spent, what was it? I think about 6 weeks in the Russ Hotel in San Francisco before they took off for Europe. And they think that a mother gave birth to a daughter, didn't want it, so they gave the baby to the Bowers.
Okay. That's quite fascinating.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh, and did you find any articles on their return from Europe, or any references about their traveling in Europe?
Yes, they first went to England to visit family. And
Okay.
it was said that Eiley's sister Betsy was somewhere in England, and she took care of Persia. Persia did not follow them all around Europe. And they went to all kinds of places. She also, in England, Eilley wanted to be, what's the word, given or granted a session with the Queen. And the Queen wouldn't have
Okay.
anything to do with her because she'd been, divorced twice. So, but they traveled all over, I would say, Eastern Europe, and looking for furnishings for their mansion, and especially, I think, in France and Italy. I have to read my book to find out. France and Italy, I think that's where they purchased most of their hand-carved and commissioned pieces for the mansion.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
So they
Okay.
traveled for a year. Mhm.
I thought they had been out for a while, but I didn't know exact time.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Then another question we've got is, what year did Myron Lake buy the mansion? You'd mentioned in the end they only earned $10,000, but what
Right.
year was that again?
Let's see. I have to read my notes because I never remember anything. Just a second here.
No worries.
Let me see. That was in 1876. Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
lost everything.
So she
Everything.
really wasn't in her home for overly a long period of time.
Then she had to move in with friends. That was in Franktown. And being she'd lived there before, she had made quite a few friends. And friends pitied her and said, come on, move in for a while till you figure out what you want to do. So she did have a place to go to, but that mansion was the love of her life. If you could say that about a building, that was her home. And it was just devastated her to have to move out and to lose all of those beautiful furnishings.
Oh, absolutely. Well, because she owned the boarding house
Mhm.
in in Gold Hill.
Mhm.
Did she at some point after they struck it rich, she then sold the boarding house, I would take it?
Yeah, because they all wanted to move there into Franktown. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another question is, what was the first newspaper article that mentioned her predictions? I would love to learn a little bit more where
Oh,
you found
was
some of
it?
these great predictions.
Let's see. Where's my book? Oh, there was so many of them, especially in Virginia City. Okay, because that's
Okay.
where she got her first start. And I would say it had to be, I would say, in the mid 1860s, because
Mhm.
she did travel up there before she lost everything.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
she was talking to a friend there in Washoe Valley, and she kind of confided to this friend, I have this gift, and she showed the friend what she did. Well, the friend, well, being they were pretty religious back then, said, yes, from the devil, and Eilley said, no, it's not. And so she started talking to miners and other people that were working down in Washoe Valley and around Franktown, the lumbermen, things like that, and giving them predictions. And they said, you need to make some money with this. So she went up to Virginia City because that's where they were starting to speak about her. And so before she did lose everything, there was quite a few times that she was advertised about renting a room from a friend up in Virginia City to give readings, however, now and then. But
Okay.
then when she had to lose everything, that's when she relied on her gift to, well, as her career then.
Wow. And you said that she traveled to California. Did you
Mhm.
say Mexico or New Mexico?
Mexico, yeah, she would trek down there about every 2 or 3 years. As she was going like through Sacramento, Stockton, Los Angeles, she'd go into Mexico and do her thing, and then work her way back up to Northern California or Northern Nevada.
Wow. That's interesting. So there's another question. Do you know if the Bowers had servants in the mansion? I mean, I would think that they would have, a maid, a cook, and some different things. But is there? It's been a long time, and I don't know if I've gone through the whole building that there was servants' quarters or
Mhm.
in the building. Do you know, Sandy?
Yes, they were outside. There's a building now. It's a cinder block building in the back. That's where they stayed.
Oh.
And I don't know the number, but you're right. They had maids, cooks, those that clean, butler. They had everything because they were very rich and they could afford that. But after, when Sandy started, to die and she started losing her assets, of course, everybody had to leave. There just was maybe one or two. I know that when she was starting that boarding house there, as mentioned, she had an on-site doctor, and I think he was living there, if I can remember my notes. And I think there was just a couple of maids living there at the time, and before she before she lost her home. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would think with such a large place that you would need a little help if you're trying to do balls and boarding house
Sure.
things. Let's see. And then let's see, what became of Persia? Of course, she did pass away, and she's buried on the property, correct?
Yes, she is. And many, many years ago, she had a different grave marker. In fact, somebody stole it and they cracked it in half and they found it somewhere in the weeds out there by Washoe Lake. And the caretaker, one of the first caretakers, was strolling along there one day and she saw half of it. And so I'm not quite sure where it ended up at. I think she took it back to the Historical Society, but they tried to find I think that was the bottom half, and they tried to find the top half and they could never find it. So that tombstone that she has there now, it's not original.
Okay. And I know over time people have contacted the Historical Society, mentioning that they have sometimes furniture, original pieces that, family members had purchased over time, and things have been donated back to Bowers Mansion because it's a park. But do you know how much original furniture that's on display is there now? Do you have any idea?
From reading my notes, I'm going to give it a ballpark figure, about 65%. It could be more than that. But a lot of pieces were donated from was a Navy admiral, and his wife from New York, for some reason, had a lot of pieces and they shipped them all back. And then quite a few people donated similar, like if a bureau was made in 1865, they donated that. Might not have been an original piece that they purchased, but it was from the same era.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Another question is, did she add the balconies and widow walk?
Yes.
Is that what this is? Okay, I was like, window walk? What? Widow walk, sorry.
Widow walk. Yes, actually, that was one of her first renovations, and it was horrifically built. It was so dangerous. They had to make a staircase. In fact, that staircase is the one that I displayed on the second to the last sale of this program. It was a staircase that went I don't know, somewhere up into the roof. They used the roof joists as the floor joists. She made a whole bunch of rooms, and that's when the balcony was there, and also the widow walk. Well, with the elements here in Nevada, it didn't last long, and it was starting to deteriorate. Some of it was caving in. So she closed that off. It wasn't available for any guest rooms for some time. And then when they really started the renovations, what was that, 1962? Don't take that as gospel. They had to completely remove that. I mean, it was, if a crane even just barely touched it, it would just disintegrate. So it was very horrifically created. I think it was created fast so she could get more guest rooms available. But and to this day, I think the man that renovated and restored it still can't figure out how in the world did they get a staircase up to the third floor. It's kind of like the Winchester Mystery House. You know, where does it go?
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Let's see. Oh, there was also just a little information that Theodore Winters also owned Bowers Mansion in the 1880s, 1890s.
I think because of my notes, I think he did, but just briefly. Just briefly,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Hey, Neil, do you have any questions or
you
comments
could add,
you'd like to add?
You could add Henry Ryder to that because he took over in 1903. But I had one comment on our friend Arline. And when I first met her, she came to one of my programs. She was in this genealogy class. And so it was a fun meeting with her. She's got a dynamite personality. And then again, running across her up at the Historical Society and finding out that she is a researcher. Absolutely. And so I wondered if you might comment on your first meeting with Arline.
Arlene, oh my gosh, I love
She corrected me on that. Arlene
okay.
and Arline.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
I first met her in, let me see, 2012. I was writing a book about the St. Mary Louise Hospital in Virginia City. And one of the caretakers, she was a brand new caretaker, said, you need to get a hold of Arlene. She knows everything to know about it. And I said, okay. So I got a hold of Arlene and I met her up at the Nevada Historical Society. And we sat there for a couple hours and my jaw hit the floor. And it's like, ah, and it has been a beautiful friendship since then.
Yes.
That was our first book together. That was our beginning of our good friendship. And it's all history since then. We have a lot of books under our belts.
Yeah, she's a major sweetheart, that girl is.
Oh, I just love her. And knowledge, you know what? I don't know if a lot of people believe this or not, but I do. I have to. I really feel that when she's researching someone that has crossed over, that person literally comes to her and says, okay, check this website, check that email, check this. And she gets so much information and knowledge from these spirits that she does check out everything that they suggested. And then she comes up with a 100-page report. It's phenomenal. I just love how she works.
Well, her favorite comment is she loves digging dirt up on dead people, you know.
That is her motto.
Mhm. Exactly.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
There is another question. Do you know if Eilley kept a diary, any samples of her handwriting?
I don't think so. Many years ago, I think it was in the 1950s or early 60s. Up in Virginia City, I think it was at the Bucket of Blood, there was this man that said he had her diary. and it was like in the form of a Bible. Well, there was a historian that went up there and said, I'd like to see that if I could. And he hovered over her so she wouldn't take notes. But he had to go tend to people at the bar. So she quickly took notes. And at that time, of course, we didn't have like cell phones. You couldn't, click some pictures. But just her observances. For one thing, in the beginning where there's names, the birth and death dates don't match. And also another thing she observed too was great flourish of these, these Victorian type of fonts, where the vines and flowers and everything all over like the beginning first letter. That didn't come into being until the very late Victorian era, maybe like 1890s going into 1900. Eilley wouldn't have written that way. And so that's an observance that this historian found and went, we think it's fake. And then they didn't have, what was it? I have that written in the book. They didn't have Sandie's, I think it was Sandie's death date. And it's like, well, why not? They wrote down everything. And so I don't know if the bucket of blood still I think I said Delta, bucket of blood still has that or not, but the historian said, nah, this is fake.
Okay.
Outside of that, maybe a couple of letters, from her family.
Okay.
But they don't know where they're at, or I don't know that they know where they're at.
And then I have one final question to ask. Her peepstone, did she have really a crystal ball that she used, or was it mineral, or I guess that's my question when she did her, second sight.
I'm so glad you asked that, because this is so interesting. She had this beautiful gift, and she was given a egg-shaped crystal, quartz crystal that came from her area where she was born in, where was she born? In Scotland there, But she didn't really use that right off the bat. What she used, because her talent was so keen, she first used salt and pepper shakers that were made out of crystal or glass that weren't patterned. They were just straight glass. She also used, what a cruet bottle is for oil? Usually has like a round stopper. She used that. But she also used her peepstone. She called it a peepstone. She used that. As far as at the mansion, there's a couple of big crystal balls. I guess it could be glass, it could be crystal. Those are not original. She did not have those. She just had a little egg-shaped one. Yeah.
Okay.
But it looks good at Bowers Mansion, though.
Well, I was just curious, when you were saying that, I'm like, wait, but I thought they had, mentioned or had it on display was a crystal ball. So, okay. Well, this has been a fascinating presentation, and thank you so much, Sandie. It was lovely, and I know I hope everybody really enjoyed all the different questions and everything you were able to answer.
Thank you for the questions, everybody. That was really nice. Could I just say one last thing?
Oh, of course.
I've had a couple people ask me, why did we write the book? And especially I like to answer that question because of Arlene's phenomenal research and Betty Hood, who is historian and curator there. I admire and I love Eilley's strength, fortitude, and determination. She did her best every day. What a strong, strong woman. Also, I have a kinship with Eilley because of my own intuitive talent. I wish I could be as good as she. But I want to say that many years ago, there was a play that was created, and Eilley was one of the characters. And it was a good play, but Eilley was presented in a way to where she was money hungry, mean, and kind of stupid. And I silently vowed to Eilley that if there was any way that I could put her in a positive light, I'd like to do that. And so Arlene is the one that mentioned, how about we write a book about Eilley and the mansion, because she has tons and tons and tons of information from Betty Hood. I said, start sending it over. And that's how we wrote the book. And, I feel that Eilley was very, very happy that she had a book written about her. And it's really kind of interesting, too, if I could just say one more thing. A few weeks ago, I gave the same lecture at Piper's Opera House.
Okay.
And I have an ability where spirits can contact me. And while I was giving this lecture, all of a sudden, somebody started tickling my nose. And I was going like that. And it was getting very annoying because here I am, trying to be professional, Finally, I turned around to the stage. I was in front of the stage. I turned around, I said, would you stop it? And it stopped. And I think being Eilley had been in Piper's, okay, I think maybe that was her way of saying, thank you. It was fun. I love Eilley. And if I can talk about her anywhere and everywhere, it's an honor to do so. So thank you for
wonderful. Well, this was wonderful. And thank you to the Washoe County Libraries as always. And they also put in the panel the comments that your website, Sandie. So if people want to know more about your books, so I think that's wonderful. But thank you, Jennifer and John and the Washoe County Libraries as always. And we'll turn it back to Jennifer and say thank you. Neil, did you have something? Or are you just waving goodbye?
Oh, no, I always like to talk about our speaker. Not only was impressed, I was entertained. And I am so grateful that you shared all of this with us. So you were just a star today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for joining us. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry Hayes-Zorn, Neil Cobb, and Sandie La Nae with the Nevada Historical Society, and John, our Washoe County Library Services tech wizard, for making this event possible today.
Bye, guys. Thank you. See you next month.